Hi everyone, Miss Andronicus is back with you. Today we are looking at patterns and linear functions, particularly focusing on that table of values, getting the rule, then plotting the coordinates and the linear function on the graph, and back the other way. So let's have a look at this first one. Here we've got complete the table, finding the linear function, and then plotting it on the graph. So we've got to get the rule. So we need to remember we operate under y equals mx plus c. So that's our rule, or that function that we're going to be utilizing. Now, in order to be able to figure out, y, we know where that's coming from. That's the y coordinate. The x coordinate, and it pertains to the axes on the graph as well. But the m and the c are representative of some kind of number that we need to put there. In order to find them, let's have a look at firstly across the x. Now we're going to look horizontally, and we're going to actually look across and find, is there a pattern there? We want that pattern to always be plus 1 in order to be able to look and have this work. So having a look across here, negative 1 to 0 is a plus 1. Beautiful. Negative 0 to 2 is actually plus 2, and this is a problem. So we need to make sure that we have the variable in between so that we do 2 little jumps instead of plus 1. And 0, 1, 2 is going to be plus 1 every time. Now, just having those 4 spots there with the new one we've added in is enough. So that's enough of the pattern for now. We don't need to necessarily complete that for the rest of the table. 3 minimum is what we want to have to be able to see a pattern. Okay, so let's have a look. We've got the x going up in ones, tick. The second thing is looking across the y. So we have a look across here, and we want this to constantly be going up in a consistent manner. Is there a pattern there? So let's have a look. We've got negative 4 to negative 2 is plus 2. Now, to do that big jump, negative 2 to 2 is going to be plus 4. But if we focus on the 2 little jumps like we did up above, it's going to be plus 2 and plus 2. So actually, we could say that if that's a 1 there, that's a 0 there. So that's the missing little pair of coordinates that would sit in that position. So, in other words, y is going up in positive 2. That means this number here, this positive 2, gets substituted straight in to where that m position is. So it actually goes all the way there. So the 2 goes straight there. And then it becomes 2x, and to figure out the rest of it, we're having a look at, well, we've got 2x there. We actually use our substitution to figure out, well, what is that remaining c? So let's take this pair of coordinates, for example, the 2 and the 2. If we do 2 times x, which is 2 in this case, so 2 times 2 is 4, we want y to equal 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. Subtract what gets to 2? Subtract 2. So in this case, the plus in that formula here is only a guide. It can be a subtraction if we need it to be, and that's okay. So now we've seemed to find our rule. We can do one more check to make sure that it's correct. So let's use this pair. So we can do a little check and say, right, we need 2 times 0, subtract 2, equals y. We need it to equal y, so let's check. So 2 times 0 is 0, subtract 2 is going to be negative 2 equals y. Does it equal? Yes, it does. So we know definitely that this is the rule. Great. So we can now use that rule to apply to the rest of the table. So let's have a look here for the 5. We can do 2 times 5 is 10, take 2 is 8. 2 times 15 is 30, take 2 is 28. Have a look at this one. It's given the y position now. So we actually need to use this rule going backwards. So this is where our algebra that we've been learning comes into play. So y equals 2x, take 2. We now know y is 38 equals 2x. We don't know what x is, take 2. Using our algebra, we know we can solve this. Plus 2, cancel it out. That's going to be 40 equals 2x, divided by 2, we can see 20 equals x, and we know that belongs in that space there. From there on, this last row, I have included there to be our coordinates, okay? So we want to have a last little row there. If the table doesn't include it, you want to add it on so that you've got your coordinates to then be able to plot straight onto the graph. And the way you write your coordinates, x-axis always comes first. So you use your brackets. It's going to be -1, -4, and close brackets. 0, -2, close brackets. That's going to be 2, 2, close brackets. And you do that all the way along. So they are the coordinates that associate with those particular ones there. So let's have a look at plotting this. Now, to plot a linear function, you need a minimum of 3, just in case something's wrong or just in case something's out. Any 3 coordinates, it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to just choose any 3. So let's just choose the first 3 is fine. So we can say -1 and -4. So -1 we know is going to happen. We've got to crawl before we climb. So -1 on the x and -4 on the y. So that's going to be all the way down here, and we plot the point. We've got 0 and -2. 0, -2. And then 2, 2. So there's our 2, 2. And they need to be a perfectly straight line. So yes, we need to absolutely rule this perfectly straight line now. So here you can see I've gone and plotted that line. It goes through all of my points. The other thing to remember is you want it to go for pretty much as big as the graph is. And also you've got arrowheads on that line as well. And the rule is written against the line. It's super important that you remember the rule has got to be there. That is like you labeling that line. Okay, moving forward, having a look at a different style of question here. We've got the graph, and now we need to go back. So from here, you need to come up with your own coordinates and therefore your own table of values. So I'm going to draw them up. Draw up your table. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, remember you want to kind of just choose 3. But I'll draw that. We'll see if we need any more. So here we have having a look at the coordinates. So we know crawl before we climb. So we want to find points along this line that are exactly on the 2 numbers. So having a look, like I'm not going to use, say, this spot here because it's not perfectly on the coordinate. It's on the -6, but it's not on anything going that way. So we don't want to use that. So instead I'm going to use one here. I can see it's perfectly on that intercept. So having a look, it's -2 and -4 on the y. So the coordinate would be -2 and -4, and I can fill that in, -2, -4. Perfect. Let's have a look at another one. We've got the 0 and the 2. So 0 and 2, and that would look like that as the coordinate. And having a look further on, here's another one perfectly on the intercept. So we've got 2 and 8. So 2 and 8, and it would look like that. So don't really need that bit. That's fine. So let's have a look at this now. Remember the rule. So we want to come up with the rule for this linear function. We've got to label our line. So having a look across here, we want that to go up in 1s. It has to be +1, and as we can see, that is not +1. So we know that there's going to have to be that extra coordinate in there before we can start finding any patterns. So that's going to have to be -1 there. And here we've got -4 jumps all the way to 2. That is a +6, which means 2 little jumps of 3 is going to get us there. So that's -1. That +3 is -1. So actually the next coordinate is -1, -1. And then we've got 0. Remember, we need at least 3 to come up with a pattern. So we can see here, finally, we've got this going up in 1s. Beautiful. Now we can see the pattern going across the bottom here of the y. And that, for the -4 to get to -1, is a +3. And for the negative 1 to get to 2 is plus 3. Great, so remember our generic. So we've got y equals mx plus c. That plus 3 goes straight where the m position is. So y equals 3x. And we can't finish it until we do a substitution. So let's have a look at the 2 and the 8. So 3 times the x number, which is 2, is 6. How do we get that to equal 8? Because it says y equals that. And we know that's a plus 2 more to get there. Check it. Well, let's have a look at this one to do our check. So 3 times 0 is 0. Plus what? Plus 2 gets you to 2. So, yep, we know that that's the rule. We can go back to our line, label our line, just to finish that off. And if, say, we had the question needing us to find any other numbers with that rule, it is there to be used. Okay, guys, that's it. Ciao for now.